welcome to It's Just Our Opinion podcast.
Hey, this is not a political show, it's not a news show, not a storytelling show, but really it's all the above with a little humor added.
Just remember, it's just our opinion, and it's just that. It only represents our opinion. It doesn't represent any employers, organizations, or other affiliations we might have.
All right, this is our first show. We're honored to have Coach Tommy Tuberville as our first guest. Remember, this isn't a political show, but we will from time to time have candidates to inform you about the issues.
Yeah, I think that's important for you guys to understand as we go through this show. We may have political candidates, public officials that come on the show and talk. Just because they're giving their platform, saying what they have to say, it doesn't mean it's our opinion. We're just giving you information. We want you to understand that we want you to do the research of your candidates and decide who you want to vote for, because I think that's important, don't you, Ray?
Yes, Josh, already there's several people that's already announced they're running for this Senate seat. The election's not till March of 2020. That's the primary, and all these are announcing for the Republican primary, trying to get the nomination. We've had State Representative Arnold Mooney, businessman from Haleyville, Stanley Adair, Congressman Bradley Burns already announced, and Secretary of State John Merrill, and I believe didn't Judge Roy Moore throw his hat in the ring?
Yeah, Judge Roy Moore did get in, and we can't forget about the senator now on the Democratic side that'll be running during the general election, Doug Jones. I think we've got a full slate. Qualifying is not over till November, I do believe.
November.
So we could get some more that jump in this race. I think this race is a very important race as we go forward, and it's going to be interesting to see how this shapes up. Do you think you got any thoughts on the race of how the race is going to go in terms of you think we're going to have a runoff in the Republican primary?
Yeah, I think so. Anytime you get this many candidates running, and there's a few more looking at it that may jump in, there's really no doubt that we'll have a runoff, and that'll just make it interesting. One of our goals ought to be, even though we don't want this to be a political show all the time, but it'd be nice if we had all these candidates from between now and November, or at least between now and March, to come on our show.
That's right. We want our listeners just to overall get informed about what they're listening to and who they have out there that they can vote for. Because one thing that you and I definitely agree on is we want these people to register to vote, and no matter if it's their opinion or our opinion, we just want your voice to be heard.
Oh yeah, if you don't register and vote, really, you shouldn't be able to complain. Now that don't stop people. Just like you and I have our opinion. So many people has their own opinion, even if they don't vote. But really and truly, everybody should get registered and should vote for the candidate of your choice. But I would prefer you to vote for somebody that's been on our show, wouldn't you, Josh?
Maybe we can get them all on our show, and we'll leave it out there for the audience to decide. So what we got up next? We got Tommy Tuberville coming up in just a few minutes. I'll tell you a story before we get started here. The day before the show, my son and I were playing Nerf guns, and we were out playing. If you guys have children out there, you know what it's like to play with Nerf guns. And I didn't realize, I know growing up I had them, but I didn't realize how dangerous they were, Ray. As we went out, my son and I were playing, and he come up to me at point blank range, and those little Nerf bullets, they are pack a punch, that's for sure.
Oh, I know they do. Back when I'm a little older than you are, we didn't have Nerf guns. We just threw rocks when I was growing up. So you lucked out on the Nerf gun.
Well, I guess David from the Bible showed you how to throw those rocks from a slingshot, right?
Yeah, they did. I wasn't as good as he was.
Well, my son shot me from point blank range there. It caught my eye. I was afraid I was going to have to go to this interview with Tommy Tuberville. He's going to look at me and think I got beat up outside somewhere with a black eye or something.
You didn't have Alabama shirt on.
I didn't have an Alabama shirt on. That's one thing we'll go ahead and tell you guys about us. Ray's an Alabama fan, and I'm an Auburn graduate. So going into Tommy Tuberville interview, I don't want to show any bias, but I will say I do like Tommy a little bit because he is a former Auburn football coach.
Oh yeah, and he done a great job when he was there too. I think he actually beat Alabama a few years.
Yeah. But
Don't show me the fingers.
But he stuck the thumb up. So here it is. Here's the interview with Tommy Tuberville. Again, we're not telling you what candidate to choose, but we're just giving you information. We're not going to push any candidate to you. That's one thing you're going to learn from us. We want you to decide.
All right, we're here with former coach and now National Senate candidate for Alabama, Tommy Tuberville. Good to have you, Tommy.
Glad to be here. Beautiful day here in North Alabama.
So, Tommy, this podcast, we kind of like to get to know the candidate and not really get too much in the weeds, but tell us a little bit about the man, Tommy, your family, that sort of thing. Tell us what your hobbies are and what you like to do.
Well, I'm an outdoorsman. You know, I love guns and hunting, and actually I have a farm in Auburn where we raise deer, high fence, and that's a lot of fun. But I grew up fishing, turkey hunting mostly. I'm not as mad as deer as I used to be. That's too much work. But I really like the outdoors. I play golf. I have two boys, Tucker and Troy. One's 25, one's 23. Both went to Auburn, and I tried to do as much as I possibly could with them because, you know, when you're coaching, you don't have a lot of free time. You got 120 kids at the office, and then you got 2 at home. So you got to kind of split your time. But I involved them a lot in things that we did with our football players, and my wife Suzanne. We've been married going on 30 years now, so we've had a good life, and I retired a couple of years ago, and now I want to go help the state of Alabama in this country and see if people send me to Washington, D.C. to try to make a difference.
That's awesome. Coach, I followed you for quite some time, even leaving Ole Miss, and after you left Auburn and around Texas Tech and to Cincinnati. One thing that I always noticed about you always found Alabama home. What made you come back to Alabama and keep coming back to Alabama?
You know, that's what a lot of people said. You run for U.S. Senate, and you're not from here. Well, I spent I'd say 3/4 of the last 20 years here. And, you know, got farms, I got a lake house, I've got land. I love the state. I love this part of the country because it's so diverse in terms of, you know, you got a beach south, then at Orange Beach and Destin, and then you got mountains. You have a lot of great rivers and lakes. There's just a lot to do. And my kids love it, my wife. You know, we could have lived anywhere, but when we decided to retire, we came home to Alabama and really enjoyed it.
That's awesome, Coach. Coach, I'm sure there's a lot of things that are similar between when you were coaching, because I'm sure you spoke to several quarterback clubs, alumni, that sort of thing. What has been the similarities going from coach to candidate, and what's been your biggest challenge in going from coach to candidate?
Well, there's really not a lot of difference because there's a lot of PR, a lot of shaking hands. In college athletics, it's about recruiting, and it's about raising money for your program. You know, in a college football program, you're pretty much responsible as a head football coach for a $100 million budget. And, of course, you deal with hundreds of employees. You deal with 120, 18, 19-year-olds, and you have parents. And then at the end of the day, you got to win games, you know, with all that. So running for a political office, you know, you have to really be dedicated to it because it's hard. A lot of people have questions about it. A lot of people have different concerns, one spectrum to the other. Athletics is pretty much about one thing. And so I love to be around people. I love people, and I love this country. And I tell people this, I'm worried for our country. I'm worried that a lot of things are going in the wrong direction, and we're going to lose our freedom for us and for our kids and grandkids. We need to send more outsiders to the state, from each state to Washington, D.C. Donald Trump, I'm a huge Donald Trump fan, and if we can give him some help from people that are not career politicians, I think that would be outstanding, and I think our country would heal a lot quicker because there for a long time we were kind of knocked to our knees from the previous administration and a lot of things, but we're kind of getting off our knees, getting back to our feet, and we're making progress. I want to go up there and help President Trump in his next term accomplish even more, you know, for our state and for our country.
Coach, you covered a lot of that right there. Kind of my next question feeding into it. I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of give the rest of your platform to talk about the things besides what you've talked about already that you plan to do if you get elected to the Senate, and give your website out if you don't mind, and if people want to check out more information about you, they tell them where to go.
Yeah, if you want to know something about my platform, a lot of things that I believe in, you can go to TommyForSenate.com. It's pretty simple, and just click on and read about it. We've got a lot of stories and a lot of things that I talk about, a lot of videos, things, building more every day. I've only been in this about 6-7 weeks. But the main thing that, as I said, I'm running for, I'm worried for our country because we're losing a little bit more freedom of what we do every day. And if you look at the people on the left, the Democratic Party, they've really changed. They've changed to the point where they want to teach our kids that you don't have to work. Everything's going to be given to you. And we all know in this country, we've built this country on hard work and effort from our forefathers, our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, all the way to this point. Still the greatest country on the face of the earth. The state here is awesome. We've got potential here all over, but for some reason we've got a group that wants to come in this country and change everything that we believe in, everything that we've built. And I want to go to Washington, D.C. to try to stop that wave of playing Santa Claus. Everything's free. Don't worry about it. You don't have to work with a job. There's no such thing as that. So I'm trying to convince people that you send me to Washington, I will help Donald Trump. I will help the other good Republicans up there to try to get us back on track in terms of believing in this country again. Not worried about hurting people's feelings, but going out and trying to teach that hard work and effort will make you a success in this country. You're only as good as how hard you work. Education's a big passion of mine. We have got to improve our education. There's things that we need to change to get back on track to get education going again. I'm a physical conservative. I truly believe that we're way overspent. We've maxed out all of our credit cards in Washington, D.C., but they're still spending money. And it's money that sooner or later is going to have to be paid back. So we've got to get our physical bank under control in terms of the money that we're spending in Washington, D.C., because sooner or later taxes are going to go sky high, and people in this country don't want to do that. I'm totally against any kind of tax that we pass. I just believe that people in this country send people to Washington to spend their money wisely, and they do not do that. They waste so much money that we could be the richest country in the world, but for some reason we spend it on things that we don't need to be spending it on. So that's kind of some of the things I believe in. I think that it's important that we get Christian and moral values back in the schools, back in the neighborhoods. We protect our police. We respect our police. We respect our first responders. We respect our military. And, like I said when we first started this podcast, when we lose our freedom, and that goes, it doesn't make any difference how much money you have, how good your kids are, how good your life was. Your life will change immediately, because freedom is the number one thing that we have and have had for a long time in this country.
That's right. Kind of this podcast, like I said when we started, we kind of like to have a little fun and make light of things. So can you give us one of the funniest stories that you've got as a coach?
Well, there's probably there's a lot of them, and the great thing about coaching is you're around young people. And somebody asked me one time, why did you want to be a coach? Because you want to stay young. Because young people keep you young, because you're dealing with them every day, and you never know what to expect from young people who are 18, 19, 20-year-olds. But I was very fortunate to be at some great schools: University of Miami, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Auburn, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, and it never failed that all places you had some guys that you had to really motivate to get to do things. But I can remember one time at Auburn, we're playing Georgia, and we're not very good. It's early in my career, and we're just trying any way in the world to win a game. And we were leading going at halftime, but at the end of the first half, they figured out we couldn't stop the run. They had real good running backs, and they were running all over us. And I kind of felt bad for our defense, because we were getting ready to get really beat bad. And so I go in at halftime and told the players, or told the coaches, I said, listen, just go out there and do a few adjustments. We got to make sure we try to stop the run. I'm going to make a few comments at the end. So we go back out and bring the guys up. We're at between the hedges in Athens, and our guys had that faraway look in their eye, I could tell. And you always got to look for a way to motivate them. I said, guys, here's the deal. We're going back out to the second half. And I called our punter up in the front and said, come on up. I said, go and take your uniform off. I said, guys, our punter's not going to be dressed at halftime. I just say half. We're going to go in for every fourth down. We're going to go out and try to win this game. And the guys all got perked up. And I said, we're going to go for fourth down. I don't care where the ball is on the field. Well, sure enough, we go out there, and our first fourth down was 4th and 1 from our own 12-yard line. And I'm thinking, man, I should have never done that because that's going to put us in the hole. We went for it. We had like a 40-yard run. And from then on, we made 5 of 5 first downs on fourth down, never punted. And that's when I was named the Riverboat Gambler and by Tim Brando. And that was the only time I ever got carried off the field by our players, simply for the fact that it was just hilarious on the sideline. Our players were really into it. If I'd ever punted, I would have lost that football game. But that was probably the most fun time of being around a bunch of guys that just something worked, kids were motivated, and that's what makes it fun about coaching. You can really do things sometimes when you don't think you really have a chance.
That's right. Well, we thank you, Coach, for joining our podcast. And if you want to hear more and look at more about Tommy Tuberville, go to TommyForSenate.com. We thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. That's Tommy Tuberville, former football coach and now running for the U.S. Senate seat for the state of Alabama.
Hey, thank you for listening to our first show. And, we hope you'll keep up with all of our shows.
You can catch us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or Facebook.
Hey, and remember, everything that we say,
it's just our opinion.